This episode of Bullet Heaven was made using copies of the game provided by PIXELHEART.EU, and using the Retrobit 2.4 GHz wireless Saturn controller from Stoneage Gamer. More Astro Port? Yes, please, especially if it can be played on the go. It's no small secret that Astro Port is a pretty solid mainstay here on Bullet Heaven, even if their games are lesser versions of more prestigious classic titles with somewhat lower production values, particularly in the realm of sound. We've checked out all kinds of Astro Port titles in the past, including Armed 7 and Wolflame, but Satazius is something we've always wanted to tackle. Thankfully, the Astro Port Shmup collection by Pixelheart and Storybird are a great excuse to revisit some Astro Port classics and finally dive into Satazius. So, let's take a closer look. We took a look at Armed 7 all the way back in episode 128, as well as his revamped 2019 Dreamcast port in episode 252. Generally speaking, we enjoy the game, though it definitely has its shortcomings, especially in its sound and challenge, regardless of the platform it's played on. For the full rundown of what makes this game tick, be sure to check out episode 252. Newly released on the Switch, Armed 7 DX is basically the same game we saw on the Sega Dreamcast, but in a wider aspected package. All of the exact same controls and features are present here. Two versions of the game, one an enhanced version with new music and a bizarre color-swapped presentation, and one based on the PC original, are selectable at game start. Normal and reverse gun aiming is also present as well. Unfortunately, the same issues we found last time are present as well. Sprite sheet artifacts, odd sprite clipping, overused cliché doujin sound effects, and a weak arranged OST are not improved over the Dreamcast sounding. But there's also another shortcoming. Wide aspected gameplay translated over from a 4:3 aspected source can be done one of three ways. The first, and dirtiest, is stretching the picture, making for a really ugly game. The second would be to reprogram what is visible on screen, and that can take a fair bit of effort to accomplish. The third is to clip parts of the playfield on the top and bottom of the screen. What we're seeing here is a hybrid of the latter two, a slightly stretched picture combined with a clipped playfield. Especially in the case of the PC-themed visuals, this means that parts of the stage, which includes hazards and enemies, are clipped off and hidden. But they also still exist. Sure, the player can also travel to these hidden portions of the screen, but hiding anything in this manner is kind of a no-no. Thankfully, with its fast-paced gameplay, cool bosses, and decent array of mix-and-matched weapons, Armed 7 is still more than playable, and it's more or less just as fun as the other versions we've taken a look at in the past. A patch could easily fix the visuals, but it would be recommended that the 4:3 aspect be restored with the option of wallpapers instead. That said, the new visual issues do make the game suffer slightly, and Armed 7 DX gets a 3.75 out of 5. In episode 148 of Bullet Heaven, we took a look at Astro Port's Wolflame on PC. As a vertical shooting game featuring a 3:4 aspect ratio, Wolflame is uncharacteristic of Astro Port, as most of their titles are horizontal scrollers. For the full skinny on what makes Wolflame tick, be sure to check out Bullet Heaven episode 148. Wolflame takes a whole bunch of cues from the Raiden series, but also spices things up with 3 different mix-and-match weapons that can be mounted on both sides of the player's ship, known as the Cybold. Add to that a great recovery mechanic where players can retrieve their firepower on the next life, even with a checkpoint system in place, and Wolflame definitely has its own identity and flavor, despite its similarities to the Seibu Kaihatsu classic. Weighing in at a monster 10 stages, Wolflame offers all kinds of game to play, though the challenge once again is on the tame side, requiring veterans to ratchet up the difficulty for a proper challenge. As far as the Switch version goes, Wolflame is a more direct port of the PC version. That means there are no weird color palette swaps and no remix or alternate soundtracks this time around. But it also means that the same short music tracks with jarring loop points are also present again. Once again, there are graphical issues here as well. Not so much in terms of the backgrounds or sprites, as everything is clear and mostly sharp. Rather, the aspect ratios are a little messed up. In horizontal play mode, the screen is a bit too wide, but in Tate, it's way too tall. Unfortunately, there is no proper 3:4 aspect ratio here, though this could easily be fixed in a patch. Features from the PC version are also missing, including replays and button config options. Otherwise, this is still a fairly decent version of Wolflame, and it's cool that it's available beyond PC after so long. As of now though, with its slight visual issues, Wolflame on Switch gets a 3.75 out of 5. So far, every Astro Port game that has made its way over to consoles has had issues that kept them from real greatness, whether artifacts from sprite sheets, visual tears, or other odd choices with regards to their alternate soundtracks. We have noticed that over time, things have gradually improved. We think things may have finally fallen into place though, and nowhere is this more evident than the newly re-released and enhanced Astro Port Gradius-alike Satazius Next. Originally released in July 2011, this doujin side-scroller would also see release to Steam on December 16, 2011. Most recently, the updated Satazius Next was released on the Wii U and Nintendo Switch as part of the Shmups collection from Astro Port, so now it's finally time to take a closer look. Satazius' name alone definitely evokes a knee-jerk Gradius expectation, but in fact its gameplay is quite a bit different. Gradius has typically given players a wide degree of choice on the outset of the game, starting with Gradius 2, allowing multiple selectable loadouts to be chosen and enhanced through the game itself. Similarly, in Satazius there's a lot of choice too, various main weapons with different power and fire patterns, 2 different sub-weapons, and a super attack that will charge over time for repeated use can all be chosen from multiple available systems. But this is more or less where the similarities between the two end. Rather than using a power-up bar system like Gradius, players have everything enabled and selectable immediately. Pressing the A button will fire both the main and sub-weapon in play at once, allowing for decent screen coverage. Meanwhile, pressing the X button will switch between the sub-weapons chosen, allowing players to adapt their offensive strategy when needed. Best of all, these loadouts are not set in stone. Not only can players change the loadout between every stage, new weapons and abilities are also made available as more and more bosses are dealt with. Well, so long as the player doesn't take too long to do it. Some work better than others, but are all balanced with regards to fire rate and power, allowing players with different playstyles to find a groove in which to take on the final stages of the game. Beyond this, all weapons can be strengthened through the collection of power-ups, red for the main weapon, green for the sub-weapon in use, and yellow for the super attack, and each to a maximum sustain level of 7. A true maximum level of 8, indicated with a max in the gauge, can also be achieved, though it will only last for a limited amount of time when in use. These powered-up weapons are maintained from stage to stage, but will be reduced in power if the player dies. But what about speed and shields? Well, those make an appearance too, but in the form of dedicated pickups. Blue speed icons will boost the player's speed up to a level of 4. There are also speed down pickups as well, allowing for players to scale things back if they need to, though these pickups are less common. Purple shield icons will grant the player a protective barrier, but it only works for one hit by an enemy projectile. Direct contact with a physical obstacle or enemy will still destroy the player. The shield is therefore a little flimsy, but will still come in handy throughout the game. Satazius plays over the course of 6 stages, each of which lasts a decent amount of time. The challenge to start is also moderate on normal, though the stage end bosses are still fairly easily dealt with using a well-placed super attack. Overall, veterans are going to want to ratchet up the difficulty, which needs to be unlocked by completing the game on normal. Thankfully, unlocking them is worth it. Satazius features additional bosses and last boss phases on hard and above. This leads to more replay as a result. The scoring in Satazius is pretty tame in the greater scheme of things. Enemy destruction is going to be the primary source of a player's score, but a few extra bonuses can be collected throughout the game. First up is the star bonus. In any one stage there are 10 stars for players to collect. These stars will provide a bonus to the player at the end of the stage based on a difficulty-specific base multiplied by the number of stars collected. If all 10 can be collected, an extra perfect bonus is also applied. A bonus score can also be added to the player's total if an additional shield pickup is collected while a shield is in play, or when speed-up pickups are collected at maximum speed. These can add a nice amount of extra pointage to the player's totals, allowing for a much faster extend, especially in the case of shields. Aside from that though, there isn't a whole lot more to getting a high score in Satazius. Some stages offer great enemy destruction opportunities thanks to their Gradius-style looping vertical travel. But on the whole, it's really straightforward. No online or local leaderboards either, so only the top score is saved. It is also saved between both versions of the game. Here's where Satazius Next really shines. The original game is good and all, but finally the new remixed version from Storybird really ups the ante with great sharp visuals, a new ship sprite, and a fantastic arranged soundtrack that instantly pales the originals by a fair margin. The color palette in Satazius is pretty much par for the course when stacked up against Astro Port's other games at the time. Drab, green-heavy, and generally decent looking. Despite a lower resolution, it falls right in line with other titles such as Gigantic Army, Steel Strider, and Armed 7. But Satazius Next departs in a direction that doesn't look bad at all. In fact, we prefer it to the original game, which is a first for us with regards to the remixed editions of the Astro Port series. It all holds together well, there isn't any blurriness to the backgrounds or enemies, and it all runs very smoothly. Our only complaint is that, once again, the playfield has been stretched into a 16:9 aspect rather than a reprogrammed non-stretch screen. An option for a 4:3 aspect with wallpapers would have been great, and could still be fixed with a patch. Circling back to Satazius Next's sound, we really want to emphasize just how good the music is here. The original tracks definitely have that Astro Port flavor, but they also aren't especially good. There were a few times that we just wanted the music to calm the hell down already, jeez. On the other hand, the tracks in the alternate Next version feel great and work well for their applied stages. Even the opening track in Stage 1 really sets an excellent tone. Of course, the boss and menu tracks are still carried over from the original soundtrack, which is fine. Then again, the eye-rolling, cliched dojing game sound effects have also made their way over, weakening the sound as a result. As with our previous review of Armed 7, we'll double down here and suggest that, in the future, new effects would make a world of difference in these reduxes. I mean, consider this, most if not all dojin games we've seen so far, from almost every outfit there is, have basically saturated their games with the exact same overused, low-quality, garbage effects, and we're just sort of sick of it. As with Wolflame, a couple of things have also been removed from this version of the game. Most notably, there is no control config and replays are completely gone. Players also need to completely close the game and restart it if they want to change between original to next or vice versa. Keeping and using the PC version's quit function could easily have facilitated this. Aside from this though, the menu system and UI are all great in Satazius and Satazius Next on Switch. All in all, we recommend Satazius Next over the original, and it gets a 4.5 out of 5. So, let's see how the Shmups collection from Astro Port on Nintendo Switch stacks up. All three games here feature excellent sharp control regardless of the title. All three of the games in the Shmups collection feature tame difficulties to start. Ratcheting up the difficulty will be a must for veterans. There's all kinds of game to play between the three games present in the Shmups collection, but all of them are of a decent length on their own. Satazius Next holds the crown for best staying power. Visually, all of the games in the Shmups collection have their issues, with all exhibiting stretched playfields. Satazius Next still somehow looks great though. The sound in all of these games has their ups and downs. The ARMS 7 arranged soundtrack is not especially good, Wolflame still has grating loop breaks and short tracks, and the original Satazius is generally low quality. Once again, Satazius Next in particular is the clear winner here. Granted, of course, those cliché Dojin sound effects are as annoying as ever. All three games here don't do anything revolutionary. We basically have a Raiden alike, a Gradius alike, and a Parts of Assault Suits Vulcan alike. They're not bad by any stretch, just not mind-blowing. Satazius Next is, once again, the best of the three. $14.99 digitally, or about $35 for a physical cart when it releases in June, gets you 3 great Astro Port games with decent enhancements and portability. Because of the inclusion of Wolflame, the Switch version is hands down a better value than the Wii U release. Each game is also available on their own as a download for just $8. Overall, they're a great value. We've liked all of these games when we took a look at the before, and this was a great chance to finally take a look at Satazius after all this time. And in the end, we feel as if, more or less, Pixelheart did a good job with this package, particularly with Satazius Next. Sharp visuals, great sound, and tight gameplay make it a real winner. The Shmups collection by Astro Port therefore gets a 4.25 out of 5. You can get a copy of the Shmups collection for Nintendo Switch for about $15 digitally, or around $35 for the physical package. Links for it all below. Another shooter joins the ranks on PC and Switch, this time with a very familiar look and feel. Jet Lancer brings us a new twist on the kind of Luftrausers hijinks we've wanted for a while now, and we're taking a look at it on PC and Switch in the next episode of Bullet Heaven.
Be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe. We finally got a copy of Hyperduel for the Sega Saturn, and we'll be reviewing it once we hit 10,000 subscribers.